This episode of In Tune features noted Rudraveena exponent Sri Mohi Bahauddin Dagar, a 20th generation scion of the renowned Dagar family of Drupad. The son of Sri Zia Mohiuddin Dagar and the nephew of Sri Zia Fariduddin Dagar, Bahauddin Ji demonstrates an awareness of the world at large and exposure to other forms of music and dance, even as he unabashedly debunks long-held myths, shares deep insights, and takes on sensitive topics with candor. The full article on LakshmiAnand.com includes two beautiful pieces of music that Bahauddin Ji recorded exclusively to accompany this article, along with some never-before-seen pictures and more. Visit LakshmiAnand.com, LakshmiAnand.com for this and many more features on Indian classical music and musicians. In some article you had mentioned, Malkons, I think it was, you had said your father had played it somewhere, but he played it so differently that it gave the audience a feeling of, oh, this is something very familiar, but not able to quite put my handle on it. So how do you...
Yeah, that is what you call Ustaji, maestroness. I mean, my father would, like even over here, I remember once upon a time, he played this Surdasi Malhar. And he just took 3 notes and he went on going up and down and up and everybody, it was very familiar, but they could not pinpoint what. For 15 minutes, he kept on making different phrases again and again and again. And he kept on asking, "Kaun sa rag hai? Which rag is it? Which rag?" It was very difficult to say which rag it was. Then he disclosed that this is Surdasi Malhar and I'm only playing this portion. That's why you didn't recognize. But this is how is re pa ma. This portion, if you pay attention, that is a characteristic of the Surdasi Malhar.
I see.
So he would do this many times just as an education for, and he would never do this in the concert. He would do this in house baithaks or where most of his students are, just like an education or expressing or sharing what idea he has in that manner.
So if I understand you right, so he took a section of the rag and leaving out maybe the notes that would have made it very obvious. He took a small section, but at the same time in that section he was highlighting that the way he played those particular sections itself should have given a clue if one had been observant enough.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Because normally people would not pay attention to the sections. So, but he said, okay, if you do this, if you pay attention to this,
Yes.
Re ma pa ni da pa ma pa. So re ma pa re pa ma re ma pa re pa ka ma re pa ma. So he kept on going there only. So because of the Gandhar, we knew it's a Malhar, but no one dare think that the ni dha pa was not there. So then it could have been anything, because the upper mapa nidha nisa will have varieties of Malhar.
Right.
But
Because
then this repa ma became the phrase which you could identify only with Surdasi Malhar.
In a lot of our classical music, one of the things that people talk about is there are 2 philosophies. One is when you start a rag, you sing it such that it's immediately clear that it is that rag that you're singing. The other philosophy, there are some people who like to leave the listeners hanging. Saying, okay, it could be this, it could potentially be that also, because we haven't heard this, the Gandhar hasn't come yet, so it could be that, it could be this. So that was interesting to me, because generally speaking, I heard...
The second one is the one which we have always listened to. Even when my uncle would sing, he would sing 2 or 3 notes in the beginning. And sometimes like students, you sing with me in between, he will say. But he would never announce the name of the rag.
I see.
Then he would just sing 2 notes, 3 notes, and we're just looking at each other.
Right.
But if he's done that a few times before, then we know that this is rag.
Right.
But he would never tell if it's a new rag. Like if you take something, like once I had to play with him in a concert, and he began Hem Kalyan. And I had never listened to what is Hem Kalyan in my life. I never heard the name of Hem Kalyan. And playing a concert with him was this. But you get stuck somewhere in between
Right.
and you don't know. And I said, Ustad, what is this? He says, just follow me.
Okay.
He says, what rag is this? This is what do you have to do with the rag? Just follow
Okay.
me. A very beautiful way of uh, taking you to a point and opening you up to a new aspect. I mean, not the regular like Nirega, this is Yaman. No, something else. Look at it from this point of view, from a different dimension, and let's see what does it reveal. So that also teaching you to be adventurous and to approach every time in new manner.
Right. And that also, I think, instills a certain discipline. You don't know the rag,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
you can only follow what he has played. If he has only touched those three
Exactly.
notes, you cannot venture to take a
Exactly.
fourth note even accidentally, because you
No.
don't know what that fourth
The
note is.
moment if somebody does that, you look, hey, aage mat jana, come back, don't go ahead.
Right.
Only sing within what I am singing. So,
Right.
yeah, and try to create space between those three notes or
Ah.
four notes. Just create more space. Put different places, put the commas, different places, accents. Play, use different words, use different combinations. How many? He says, see, in three notes there are 9 combinations. It's over. What is the point?
Right.
We are not trying to do combinations. We're trying to understand what else is there. What is the swarup of a rag? The swarup of a rag, he said, is always, it's not the arohi, avrohi. Avrohi is like the skeleton. Swarup is like the soul. So it is and he said there is a swar, and each note has to be like a fractal kind of a thing. It should stand for the whole. So that Gandhar of Yaman or the Gandhar of some other rag has to be such a manner that when you put that note, any one note, that entire rag should reverberate. Otherwise, and he always tried, I'm not saying it was easy for us at all, but he would touch the note.
Right.
And when we would sing with him, that rag would sound exactly like the way it has to sound. But if we ever tried it again, it was like a slap in our face, nothing. And we sit and laugh. We said, this is not happening.
So
I
your
said, what
father
about-
had given you some skeletons about
Yes,
of
yes.
the ragas.
In Malkos, he had given me Malkos. In that picture, in that movie, that skeleton is there. Sa, dha, ma. That is the sthai of
Right.
Malkos. Similarly, a sthai of Yaman was given to me.
Okay.
And similarly, once he showed an Rag Vardhani, he showed to me somehow. So,
So
and,
how would he do that? So to what extent would he teach you? I mean, would he sing it to you? Would he play it to
yeah,
you? Would
sing.
you-
He never played for me. He says, if I play it for you, you will start copying me.
Okay.
There can only be one Zia Mohidin Dagar. If you make 2 of them, he says you are going to be a very boring and very poor copy of him.
Okay.
You have to way. So he would like re na no ta ra ra na na te ta ra na ra. This is the sthai of make you by heart. He says, okay, let this be with you. When then I said, after this, he says, after this, you have been listening to so much music. Now you tell me how you will improvise. Step by step, you have to improvise. So even with the Yaman, he says, just play the sthai for long time. So for 6-7 months, keep on, not every day, but I keep on playing, keep on singing, keep on playing. And then one day, suddenly I saw that I was playing an ala for 20 minutes.
Okay.
And I wondered, where did this come from? And I said, I played for 20 minutes. He says, it comes from the sthai. Now you have only improvised it mechanically and technically. Now it has yet to sound like the Yaman. So go on with this. And so I held on to that because I believe that it is the seed that will grow into the tree, that will give the fruits and the flowers. That is it. You just require one seed. And then because I was very anxious about other rags also. So I asked him, how is this? How is Kaushik Kannada? How is this one? How is that one? How is Basan Bukhari? How is this one? He says, you want to become a coolie or you want to become a musician? I said, I want to become a musician. He said, then why are you carrying all this weight on your head unnecessary? He says, I said, what if I'm not able to play that? He says, then don't worry. at least play, if you can play the Yaman in from the lower octave, Mandra Saptak to the Tar Saptak, correctly once in your lifetime, your work is done. This is not some kind of a market that you're going to sell this rag, that rag, that rag. This is not for that. This is for understanding a way of life. Your life is connected to this work. The work is connected to the life, and they will fuel and facilitate one another. You clear one thing, everything will start coming to you. And truly enough, with time, with after Yaman, this, that, rag started opening, and when they started opening, I started approaching my uncle. But during that time, also in the beginning, there was Pushparaj Koshti ji, who was a Surbhar player, who was learning with my father since I was 4 years old.
I see.
So he would come and sit with me and make me play for long hours, and he would sit and play with me and encourage me to play. And then I would ask him, Dada, what is this? I'm playing it like this. It is right. Okay, play this, play that. And I would still be playing three rags, and he's very patient with me. So he was pushing me also a lot.
Okay.
Also at the same time, my mother made a provision at the Gurukul where every month we had a baitak. So because of the baitak, I was playing at the baitak. So I had to prepare something in my mind.
Okay.
So I had to be ready in my mind to play something. Not because there was never, and there is never in our family a concept of preparing for a concert. Kacheri. Never prepare for a kacheri. They said prepare the work, and in whatever you want to show in that kacheri you can show. Doesn't matter.
Right.
It's tayari. He says you should not practice for a concert. You should practice to better your work.
There was a lot of family sacrifice involved in the building of this Gurukul, right? Your parents had to be separated.
Yes.
You had to be away from your father. He had to be alone in a different continent.
I was okay. I was okay because my father had a tough time trying to be away from me and from the family. He had a tough time. My mother had a tough time.
Right.
But this is what we wanted. They wanted very badly that a Gurukul should happen. They wanted very badly that this music should remain. Because you see, when my father came to Bombay, he had nothing with him. Just the clothes he was wearing, he came with. He was sleeping somewhere on the road. He was eating somewhere, God knows where. It began from
That
there.
is the other thing I wanted to talk about is I read that, like when you had the patronage of the Udaipur court, it's a different thing. But after the patronage, there must have been a period of immense struggle before, getting
there was for
back
my father.
of-
Yeah.
Right.
So my father traveled to Delhi, he traveled to Kolkata, and then finally he thought Bombay is a place worthwhile to stay because work is God over here. Everything is work.
Okay.
So he settled down, and then he started teaching, and then he played for some time in the film industry to get some money.
I see.
And then when he got more students, he left the film industry because he didn't want to change his work. He
Right.
wanted it to be what it was.
Right.
So in that manner, everything, it was a huge struggle, and also ideology, because life that time in the 70s, you had a big influx of pop culture, huge. You had the Bee Gees, and you had ABBA, and in India also you had this through Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, this sitarist John Lennon. I think John Lennon came to India, and so everything changed. We had the bell bottoms, we had Western disco coming in,
Right.
and nobody wanted to listen to Dhrupad. Nobody. They said, "Arey, this is dead art.
Right.
Forget it." But my father wanted to do it. He wanted to do it. I know that people used to laugh at my father because he wanted to do Dhrupad, because he wanted to play the veena. I said, "But Agar Sahab, who will listen to the veena? Why do you want to do this? Who is interested in this?" He says, "Nobody's interested. I'm interested. I'm doing it for myself." He says, "You will die of starvation." He says, No, I will do some tuitions of sitar with her." He said, "You should play the sitar. People will listen to you." He said, "I'm not interested in the sitar. I'm interested in the veena." And he kept to it. So
Right.
that was one of the reasons he got married very late. About 45, 46 age, he got married. And he, he had nothing in his house except 4 utensils, 2 chatais on the floor, mattresses, which is a very normal thing in South India to have just mattress on the floor. But
Yes.
yeah, but slowly he there was this woman who came from America, and she listened to my father, and then she introduced him to one university abroad, and that's how he went abroad. From because of his somebody took his recording and did, and there was another guy called Bent, and he recorded my father for Sweden in 1968. So that gave him hope. They said, okay, people, so I'll go abroad and teach. Maybe I get something, because here there was absolutely nothing for him.
Yeah.
But and I remember in the audience where people would be sitting, 500, 700 people would sit. To my father, there would be 20 people sitting. And he would be playing to his fullest, never hold back on anything.
That your grandfather was against your father changing the instrument, right? Your father modified the instrument, I've read.
No, not changing. My grandfather was against my father playing the instrument.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
because see, because the olden tradition says that who are vocalists should remain vocalists in the family, who are instrumentalists should remain instrumentalists. So if you start playing the veena, then you're going to stepping on somebody else's toes.
Oh, okay.
So my grandfather said no.
I see.
But then my father was very ziddi, you can say. He was very adamant. He kept on this and that, and then finally my grandfather said, okay, you go and you play veena.
Okay.
So, but this was already when he was 8 or 9 years old.
I see.
So by the time I went to Udaipur and I met some people, so they say by the time my father was 16, he was already proclaimed an ustad. Because he knew so many things and he played in so many the rag so profoundly. So then he got that permission and he stuck. And when he came to Bombay, he didn't have a veena with him. He didn't have money to buy a veena.
I see.
So they would borrow somebody's sitar or something, and both the brothers would play sitar duets.
I see.
And then later on, at one of his students, both the brothers, one of the students' house, I don't know who, I don't remember also. Both the brothers played the duet whole night, and for that they got not even 5 rupees to be paid, and they were undergoing a lot of financial stress. That day my father decided, and he told my uncle, ki Farid, from tomorrow you start singing, and I'm going to play the veena. We are not going to play sitar at all. There is no respect for us.
I see.
So we will rebuild this right from scratch again.
Is it true that Drupadiyas have to learn the veena? To learn, even vocalists? Is it?
What it is, there are 10 lakshanas of vocalist, and there are 10 lakshanas of a veena player. Okay. Now in the vocalist, the things like ghamak, hudak, and it's not possible on the veena.
Okay.
And what is on this possible is this sfurit, krintan, in a way certain things are not, but 8 of them are matching.
I see.
Also, what happens when we are using the words ri, na, ra, na, te, ta, ra, na. This is the grammar. So, of the ri, na, then ra, na. Yeah, ri, ra, na, na. Ri, ra, na, ri, na. So, now akarant, ikarant and ukarant words are used. So, which word should sustain for how long? If you use the voice, you can say my father said doesn't necessarily mean it becomes beautiful just because you have good breath. He says timing of the phrase and cutting where to cut the phrase is very important, because he says what is the meaning of shastriyata? Shastriyata means there is a framework why you will cut the phrase, how the grammar is used. So this the veena teaches very clearly.
I see.
Because it has lesser resonance.
Right.
So then it compels you to put a stroke somewhere in between. So with that, so what is the weight of the stroke? Which finger you're going to use? It's re, na. So ra, na or ra, na with the chikari. So that's why and also the swar bheds, because voice sometimes, like I'm now I'm croaking a little bit because I'm feeling like something by this thing, but in the veena, you can clearly, between sa and komar le, you can see a difference of 7 swar bheds. So the one in between sa, tam komal, tam ati komal, tivra, tam ati tivra. So there are 7 shades you can see, and which of these are used for which rag. You can clearly pull and see less, more, less, more. Yeah, this is the one. So that's why Veena, because Veena, they say if voice is the king, Veena is what measures it. It is a yantra. It is not an instrument. Veena is used as an yantra because it has. Say when you strike a Veena, there are innumerable shrutis are heard on it. Ananta shruti. So even in the Veena, in the Rudra Veena, I can show you if there is a string, and if you strike it and you put your hand in between and remove. I'm talking of a microtone word shruti, not like swar, like in North India. You can hear half a shruti difference. Half a shruti, not one shruti. Half a shruti. So this one instrument that can give so much detail can definitely show you how the rag is, where the notes are, where is the gandhar, where is the rishabh, what is the timing you should do, how do you cut the phrase, how do you use the word, how much weight should be there. So then that can be transferred back to the singing.
Okay. So was the Veena purely looked at as a tool to enable better singing and better understanding of vocal?
More, yes. Later on, when the Veena came into the courts, it began competing with the ravabs and all that, so it developed different techniques of playing. But it was a yantra basically.
So when I hear, like particularly the Jod or the Jala, right, I see a lot of the Veena's influence even in vocal.
Yeah.
Because for me it's almost like you are trying to ape the Veena in vocal is what I hear as a
because ranana tedara ranari ranana tana tarana tarana tedara ranana. So those da chick da check da chick da. So same thing is going in the vocal.
Right.
We have what happened because in our family now there became 2 broad lineages in our family.
Yeah.
So one side is my father and my uncle Mohiuddin Dagar, Fariduddin Dagar, his father Ziauddin Khan Sahab, his father Zakiruddin Khan Sahab, and his father Muhammad Jan Khan Sahab. And the other side was Muhammad Ali Khan Sahab, and his sons are now like Wasifuddin Dagar is there. So this other side, Muhammad Ali Khan Sahab is to play the Sur Singar, which is like a I don't have it with now, I've given it away, which is like a bass sarod, like what Baba Alauddin Khan Sahab was supposed to play. That also helps the voice. But after that, in their lineage, they have not used an instrument. And because we have continued with the instrument, we have been very influenced by the way the Veena is, and all the barik, suksham notes and all that. That's why we are always adhering to the Veena. And then at times we do the alap, we will do. So the only difference is in a Veena you will have asthai, antara, abhoga, sanchari in a very proper manner. You will begin in between, you will go to the lower kharaj, and then you start improvising down. In the Gayan you will have arohi, avrohi. In that you will begin, you will go forward, then you go a little bit backward, then you will go a little forward. So you spread it in a different manner. That's the only difference. But the words and the syllables, because this grammar was mostly fixed by my grandfather. So how to improvise a simple a, ra, na is a simple phrase.
Okay.
So make it a compound phrase. A, ra, na. Put to rana. So now make it a complex phrase. A, ra, na, ri, ra, na. So it becomes a complex phrase. So the same thing. So ri, na, ra, na, a, na, ta, na, te, ta, na. Now you keep on. So in the end it goes a, na, te, ta, na, ri, na, ta, na, ta, na, tra, na, ta, na. So same will go in the alap. And it will go in the jhala also, it will go in the jod also. So that's how we, so keeping that grammar in mind, we improvise everything. It fits on the Veena. So actually Veena is taking from the voice, but then the smaller details of the swar bheds that are there, we take from the Veena back.
Yeah, that was my question, because I know in Carnatic there is so much of an emphasis on the Gayaki style, on everything following the vocal system. In
Yeah.
Drupad, I have felt that the vocal has gained a lot from taking from the instrumental system. So that was my
Yeah, it is.
impression. You know?
Yeah, I feel that 50-50 is there always. You cannot separate the two. You cannot separate the veena and the voice.
Right,
It's
right.
impossible. In whatever we have studied, my fathers have studied, we always talk is these two are parallel together. You
And did
cannot.
you learn vocals, sir? Did you learn
No,
singing?
I didn't learn vocal first. For many years, I did veena, and then when my uncle finally about 12 years ago he joined IIT as a visiting professor, then I started sitting with him and trying to understand the vocal aspect and how to use and how to sing, and then to bring it back into my jhala, and to sometimes now I'm trying to bring it back into my alap also, because
Okay.
it takes time. All these things just taking time.
Can you tell me about how the voice training is done in Drupad?
So the voice training is basically there is a morning kharaj sadhana, you call it.
Okay.
Kharaj is a actually the word has come from shadaj, sa.
Okay.
So kha and sa have interchanged, so become kharaj sadhana. So try to touch the lower sa in your octave. So
Okay.
for women usually we prefer that they be in G sharp, not in A sharp, because then the thickness in the voice helps, gives a kind of good weight, we feel, to middle octave and to go to lower pa, and then from there to go slightly, slowly back into the lower sa.
Okay.
So that should be done early in the morning between 2:30 and 5:30 when the Shushumna Nadi is alive, awake.
Okay.
So during that time, then the voice gets facilitated to go lower. So that is one riyaz. Then another riyaz is the murchana. Saregama padani sa sanida pamagare, saregama padani sa re re sanida pamagare, gama padani sa rega. That one in slow, medium, and fast speed. And then after that, two lines of a sthai of an alap or something, and then some composition for tal, some tal basic. So those things are, and for the period of 7 years, 2 rags again,
I see.
like that. Yeah.
You still follow that with your students currently?
Yes, very much. I've told them, if you don't want to do this, please don't come here. This is not some inspiration school. This is a school where you want to learn something. I will teach you everything, but first you do this. So many hours of riyaz I want, so many things I need to be done. That's it. You don't want to listen to me when you leave this house. Don't listen to you. You want to walk on your head outside. You do whatever you want. But when you are playing music, then the guru is the biggest tyrant for you, maybe. But please listen to that. In personal life, I'm not telling you what to do, what not to do.
So one thing that I'm curious about, now the word Drupad is supposedly comes from Dhruva plus father, implying a fixed composition. But since
Yeah,
when did Drupad become such an alap focused?
So
Right.
I mean, I believe it was never a fixed composition.
Okay.
Because let me tell you something. Root dhra in Sanskrit means to hold together.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and dhruva meaning changeless in the midst of changes.
Okay. Okay.
So changeless in the midst, that there is a framework. That is the idea of a pad.
Okay.
That framework, not the composition.
Okay.
The framework is the idea of a word, and that framework can be bent.
Oh, okay.
Like it is like a bangle that will
Okay.
fit a 6-year-old girl to a 24-year-old woman's hand.
Okay. Okay.
So that is what is the meaning of Dhruva Pada.
Okay.
Not what they write, because there is a lot of difference in the way people write, because most of the writers have not practiced the form of Drupad. When you
Right.
practice, it becomes something else. You can see the openness. And that is what we are, what my wife and nowadays we are discussing a lot. We are talking about this because it is not means, it means, it sets you in a certain direction. Like how in the olden times, people would look at the Dhruva Tara and find a way to the home. Exactly.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that path is going to be fixed because you're looking at the Dhruva Tara.
Right.
You might take a different path and go home every time.
Right. Right.
So
right.
that is what Dhruva Path is actually.
I see.
It is an opinion about a way of music.
Could you?
And it is, and that opinion somewhere is like has a has this Dhruva Tara on one side which is giving you a direction. It's like I want to go in that direction.
Right.
It is a kind of, like we might say, probably a kind of a refinement or whatever.
Could you tell me a little bit about the modifications your father made to the Veena? Because I've heard he made some modifications, which is why even the position of holding it was also changed, right?
So the bean was the older predecessor. And then when my father was a child, he always thought that the Veena, it doesn't, because my grandfather used to play the Veena and sing it together. And sing and play the Veena together, I mean. My father thought that when we went to the lower octave, that this was not matching with the sound. Let's have something where we can have a Veena which matches the lower octave of a voice.
Okay.
So that was the first thing in his mind. Second thing was that it would be more resonance, deeper sound, heavier sound that would match the way the gaiki is defined. So the use of the words and how to use them. So these were two things he was looking for.
Okay.
And when he was very small, he spoiled a lot of my grandfather's Veenas trying to make changes, and he got really scolded for it.
Okay.
But he continued to do that in spite of being scolded. So my grandfather told my father, "Ki this is what you're looking for, and this is how it has to be made." So Dandi has to be bigger and the tumbas have to be bigger. And then he started working around this model where, so the first thing he did was from bamboo and tun wood, he used teak wood because it has more resonance. Less volume means more resonance.
Okay.
Then he put a peacock with a chamber inside it, a sound chamber. It's hollow inside. So the bridge has an opening below. The sound goes into the peacock, then goes into the dandi. So that increases the resonance. Third, he put a vasuki in the front, because now what vasuki does, this shape, is it breaks the tension of the wire at the ada.
Oh, okay.
So because of which the entire dandi doesn't bend. The older Veenas used to get bent.
Which is the Vasuki, sir? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with
the
that.
dragon in the front. The dragon in the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that happened. Then he decreased the height of the frets a little bit, so it was easier to slide and easier to pull.
Oh, okay.
Then he obviously put two bigger tumbas. Now all this happened, the weight of the Veena went from 3 kilos to 10 kilos straight away. So he tried to play it on the shoulder, but it was not possible. So he read somewhere that he told me that it is never written that the left tumba should be on the shoulder. It should be in the position of the shoulder, they said.
Right.
So he said, when I play like this, I bring my shoulder down in the position of tumba. So he says, I'm correcting it that way.
Right.
So even in Saraswati Veena, you play like this. You bring the shoulder in the position of the tumba.
Yes.
So that's what he did. Then he did a whole lot of research. I found, after this date, I found strings and of various gauges, where he then finally used a 7-number main string. The chikaris were 3-number and 4-number. The jod was 0.70, the pancham was 0.90, which was the maximum you could get in India. And then from abroad he got the 1.20, the 18-number string.
I see.
So, and he changed the javari, he put a deeper tone to it. So now once you have a deeper tone and the Veena comes down, then usually the right hand technique is to be quite profound in the veena. The tayari.
Right.
All the weight went on the left hand now. So now the
Right.
tayari became more of the alab, the swar bhed and all those things.
I
So
see.
all this, you can say it was uh, it was a necessity.
I see. I see.
Invention, yeah, it was a necessity. So the changes happened.
Hmm.
So for that he went to Kolkata a couple of times. Then he went Nitai Babu Kanailal. He talked to him about it, and they made this veena in 1963.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then he got it back, and then he played on it, he practiced on it, and then he got it out into a concert. Then he did his other stuff. So these changes were very much within the framework, and and it was just to enhance the way the gaiki is, to bring it much more closer to the voice.
Did he face any objection for all the changes?
All the time. Yeah, and people said it looks like a very nice piece of furniture. All those kind of things people told him. He said, "Who will listen to this? Why are you doing this? Why?" Because even his All India Radio audition was a very big thing. So Thakur Jaydev Singh was there, and there was somebody else, and he said, "Okay, I'll do a recording of yours, and we'll take it over there." I said, "Fine." And he said, "I will not tell who it is." And they all listened to it, and they said, "Okay, this is fine. This is the veena, fine. We should give it a top grade." But the rule was give it 6 months A grade and give it top grade. Then they disclosed the name. They said, "Oh, we didn't know," because nobody was interested in the veena at that time.
I see.
Nobody was interested in all this Drupad and Alap and all that. So it was people ridiculed him and all that. But then once he went abroad, then it became like, acha, he's gone abroad. So it becomes like a very big thing.
Yeah. There is still, I think, in India a lot of that, right? Until you go abroad or you get a foreign recognition, what has been homegrown is not appreciated necessarily.
Yeah, still the little bit is there.
So now was the ancient the original instrument, did it have tumbas that could be screwed off? Because I was seeing your Darbar video, I didn't realize until then that the tumbas can be screwed off and screwed on separately.
Yeah, all. So basically in some of the veenas, like some 150-year-old, 200-year-old veena, I saw that there are multiple holes in the dandi, so you can shift the tumba from here and put it on a nut again, put it over here. So according to the size of the person.
I see.
All those, there were various kind of veenas, like that sitar bean is there. Then there is another one in where the veena, the frets are like Saraswati veena. There are two walls and they press across. Then there is another one when somebody made a folding veena.
I see.
So all these kind of things, people were innovating all the time with them.
So how are the frets of the Rudra Veena different from the Saraswati Veena?
So early in wax also, So but Saraswati Veena has two walls of wax like that.
Right. Okay.
And the frets, only the frets, metal frets are pressed.
Right.
Here the entire fret is made of wood with the metal on it, and then the mound of wax is made, and then it was fixed in the wax. Now this. So what happened with this? When you when you travel in different climates, you go to Delhi, it's very dry. You go to Kolkata, it's very humidity. You come to Bombay, it's different humidity.
Right.
You go to Chennai, different temperature. So that wax would melt and change, and the frets would be up and down.
Right.
So my father, they changed it. They made a groove in both the frets on both the sides.
Okay.
In the fret on both the sides, and they tied it with the munga thread.
Oh, okay.
So now because of that, you could travel with it. That fret becoming up and down was not an issue. The what do you say? The melas would be perfect.
I see. Excellent.
Yeah.
Very nice. Did you do any further modifications to the instrument after your father?
No, I think another 400 years, nothing is going to be possible. This is a giant leap. Now only to understand and to be able to play it properly is going to be the next thing.
Artists, as seen by the Rasika who's just listening and watching them, everybody comes out as super confident, like to actually sit on a stage and face hundreds of people requires a level of confidence that, most of us don't have the chance of actually acting on. Whether we have it or not, to face an audience is not something the vast majority of us does. So as an artist, when you face an audience, I find that, having spoken to a lot of artists, we perceive a certain confidence, but there is an inbuilt vulnerability within every artist. I think it is that vulnerability that actually brings out the artist in them. So
what's wrong with the vulnerability?
Yeah, right. No, but people seem to find it difficult to actually portray that vulnerability. There is this, a lot of them, not everyone, but a lot of people find it difficult to portray themselves as being vulnerable. It's, you have to portray this, I'm impenetrable, I have an armor around me and nothing is going to touch me. So have you faced, like the situation where, you sit on stage and you're playing, but your mind is in a tizzy at that moment. I said, boy, I'm not sure whether any music is going to come out. Have you faced such issues?
See, when, again, we are separating the two. We are separating the music and we are separating the audience.
Okay.
What we were taught is, what you have learned, you're going to play.
Okay.
You're not going to produce something else because you're not God. So he says, whatever is going to happen over there, let it happen. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad or ugly. Sometimes it's, as a human being, when you walk on the road, you might walk and you might hit a stone somewhere.
Right.
Does that mean will you stop and again go back home and again start? They said, no, you have to just get on with life.
Right.
That is one thing.
Okay.
Second thing is, as a musician, what you have understood, only that you will play. So why worry about what they're going to listen to? Third thing is, you're going to share with them something which only you know and you have an opinion on. So my thing is, we all say music is a very spiritual experience, okay?
Right.
Let us suppose, I'm not saying it is that totally, because it requires quite a level of different person to be that.
Right.
But if you suppose, like, let's say if you go to a temple, okay, then I am the pujari of the temple. You are coming there for what? For the God. I am going there for the God. Okay. So if I'm doing the puja, if I'm going to look at the audience and do it, or I'm going to look at the God and do it.
Right.
So there is no, right from day one, there is no stress about doing that concert. If you are vulnerable, I think the best music is going to flow. And what are people going to do with your vulnerability? How much will they use you? If you give yourself to somebody, that person can use you 100%, but if you're not going to give your person to somebody, even if you're vulnerable, he can't even use 10% of you. I don't live in that fear at all.
Okay. So you have never had that, right from childhood?
No, I have, because I have admitted bad concert is bad concert. I know I have done a bad concert. When people said, "Bahut acha hai," I said, "Haan." When I know it is a bad concert and these things have to be improved. You see, audiences, not all audiences understand music.
Correct.
Many people come to you because they like you. Many people come to you because they want to encourage you. Many people come because they like to listen.
Right.
It is not their responsibility to understand the work. It is our responsibility to understand the work and to educate them about what the work is.
Right.
I should not be playing for the audience what they want. I should be giving the audience what they need to know about this work, so they understand this work better.
How does one make that step from mechanically learning to getting to be a concert level artist? What is it that takes one there?
No, nothing. There is no difference between that. Once you start understanding the work, it's like you sit at home and you paint something, and when you see your painting is good, I show it to you. You'll see, or you show me the painting. See, it's so nice, and I said, yes, that's what a concert is.
Right.
There are 5 fingers. The littlemost finger is the concert finger. Then is understanding the work. Then is learning the work. Then is spending time with that whatever, and then teaching the work.
Right.
So if you have put this little finger in this place, it's not going to match. You should know how much importance to give to that concert,
Right.
or any concert. If you're sitting with some Vidwan on the stage, and he's senior to you. Obviously, you are there to learn something in that concert, and it is your saubhagya that you're going to learn something from him. You're not there to show what you are. What you are will already be seen as to what you are. What is there? I mean, it doesn't take 2 seconds to know what you are if you're sitting in front of a Vidwan.
Right.
Suppose I'm playing with Umayal Puramji. It's very clear. You're sitting with a maestro of a very superior class. You have to just be there. You just be who you are. He will take care of you, and that's what the concert. And you will learn something in. So I have never really thought about this. I mean, I've played concerts with my uncle. He is the master on stage. I'm not worried about if I'm going to make a mistake.
Okay.
I'm his child that time.
Right.
If I'm on the stage and if I make a mistake, I'm a human being. I will go back, think it out again and work on it. Simple as that. Next time I'll... So because then what happens, when you prepare a concert, you only going to do so much. When you go there, prepare the work, you might expect to do so much, but you might do so much or you might do so little.
Right.
You have to give that chance a chance to happen, and then that you rediscover a whole lot of things, your vulnerability, everything else. And I think that when you should be open, because if you don't open your heart, there's nothing there, I feel.
Right.
I mean, I would not really enjoy a concert which went perfectly fine, because I know this is rehearsed. There's nothing there for me. But when somebody is trying to do something, then he's going to try. Then there is a possibility that he's going to make a mistake.
Right.
And when he dives down and then he again takes up, that's where the beauty of the artist lies.
I know the goal is to move to a point where you are inspired by your guru, but you're not copying the guru. That is the goal. But isn't it also the case that there is a stage when your goal is merely to replicate the guru and you try to do that? And then how do you go from that point where you are replicating the guru to finding your own space?
So in the beginning, we are all replicating the guru. We want to be like the guru,
right,
and exactly follow his steps.
Because that itself is a challenge, right? You were saying how your father would play one note that would get to the essence of the rag, and then when you try it, it sounds so bad.
Yeah. So in the beginning, we try to do it exactly like he does, because it is like again it is like the Dhruva Tara. We're trying to reach there. But after some time, when you start playing a whole lot of different things, you realize that your weight and your understanding, your weight of your hand in an instrument and your understanding is not like him. So you have to find out what is your own weight and yet be like him. So that's where the difference starts coming in. So it is not an effortless thing. It is something which you become aware of, and you spend quite an amount of time trying to fit into that new who you are. And also you are changing all the time as a person.
Right.
So how to evolve with that? So that takes time. Yeah. It just takes maybe first 10, 15, 12 years you have not done that. But after that, this can happen.
Okay. So it's just a question of the amount of time you have put in introspecting with the music.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It is an ongoing process from, not right from the beginning, but from the moment you start understanding quite a bit of the music, like I would say at least 8 to 10 years, then you don't want to sound like him, because you can't sound like him anyways. So what do you sound like? And how much can you retain in that work, in that framework, and then make it also sound like it belongs to you? What is your opinion? When you start thinking about what is going to be my opinion about that work, that's when the change starts happening. That can take time, 6 months, 3 years, whatever time. To each person, it will be different.
So what is the biggest advantage of coming from a musical family versus somebody who has no knowledge of music and only interest?
The biggest advantage is, I think, the being in love with the music. I mean, nobody can explain to you music the way you have seen it at home.
Right.
Just the love for the sake of for that art, for the sake of art. Just that the reality of the music, not giving it a consumeristic attitude, like you are playing for the audience, your responsibility for the audience. Just enjoy, see the notes, see the rag, see how beautiful it is, just to make somebody aware of that beauty, like you teach somebody to appreciate a painting similar manner. I mean, that is
Right.
the biggest advantage I feel, because it doesn't come with any stress, it didn't come with any tensions, no ideas of performance, nothing. And just do it because it is beautiful and nothing else. I think that is the biggest advantage you have in a Guru Shishya Parampara. All the uh, mm, responsibilities is of the Guru. It's not of the student. Student is there to learn, open his heart, open his mind, and just learn. He should not be worried about what's happening. He should be able to just play in it.
Because that is a very interesting viewpoint, because very often I hear students, particularly of Hindustani music, who will say, anything good I have done here is because of my guru and anything bad is because of me.
Yeah, they say that, but okay, I mean, it's, I don't know. I mean, I think the good and the bad are happening simultaneously all the time. I mean, obviously, you're also capable of doing some good.
Right.
It's possible. It's just
Yeah.
it's just a phrase. I know people use this phrase, kind of a phrase,
Yeah.
but
It's a
I'm not very
cliched phrase.
convinced.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, it
cliched
is.
phrase. I'm not
It
convinced either. That's exactly why I raise it.
I'm not convinced. I'm not really convinced. No, I'm not. We are not convinced because we come from a tradition,
Right.
and we are not convinced about so many things. We're not convinced about this idea of spirituality of Drupad.
See, that is the other thing. I was going to ask you a question about that. So, how spiritual do you feel when you sing it?
Do you see a halo behind my head?
No, I don't actually.
Then it is not spiritual. I think
Right.
spirituality is in the intention.
Ah,
I mean, if you see in Maharashtra, there was this potter who was called Gora Kumbhar because he was
Oh.
slightly fair,
Ah.
the fair potter,
Ah.
the white color potter. He attains spirituality. Someone who has never entered the temple, who has never read the scriptures, who's never allowed, whose shadow falls on somebody, people will have a bath. If such a man is experiencing spirituality, then spirituality is something else. Spirituality in Drupad is, in my opinion, it is just a selling point.
okay. Okay.
We have sold it in the name of usko bhi bech diya हमने in the name of spirituality. How many people do you find really enlightened in Drupad?
Right.
Just because you're singing a bhajan doesn't mean it's a very spiritual thing. What is your intention? You're singing bhajan, you're thinking of the money. You're singing a concert, you're thinking if you're pleasing the audience, you're thinking if you're pleasing the organizer, you're thinking, what is about the next concert? It is not. When you have surrendered yourself, then the spirituality, and spirituality is not a cake that you can have it.
Right.
I know people who are spiritually inclined and their lives are being, it's like musal mein dal. It's like the stone thing. You put the dal inside and you hit it,
Pound
with
it.
you grind it.
Life
Pound
is
it.
pounding them. Yeah.
Yes, their life is pounding. I mean, we have made spirituality into something, but actually it is not.
Right.
It is the most difficult path in life. You can actually have it. It's not possible to have this kind of spirituality. You have to change the way you are as a person. You have to change the way your life is, how you see things, how you talk about things. What are you following? Are you changing every day? What are you doing with the changes?
Right.
All this will go into spirituality, not what you're singing.
Yeah.
This is just another cliche statement that we have always opposed.
But of course, Hindustani music in general has a more secular, composition set than say a Carnatic, which is entirely Hindu, so to speak. So there you have
Yeah.
so many
It is because
compositions
of
that
the languages.
all necessarily
Also the
target
kings who
song.
stayed,
Kings.
all the kings who stayed
Correct.
over there.
Correct.
So like
Correct.
Adil Shah of Bijapur wrote this book Kitab e Nauras. He compiled all the Drupad compositions, Khayal compositions in it.
Okay.
Man Singh Tomar wrote Man Kutuhal, which is a treatise on music on 16th century, on how what was the description of music at that time?
I
What
see.
all was there in music?
I see.
Then there are Dhrupads written by Aurangzeb. There are Dhrupads written by Shah Jahan. So there are Dhrupads written by Tansen, who was at the court. So patronage of arts, because all the kings understood to
Right.
be, a knowledgeable uh, uh, ruler. You have to know all the 36 arts,
Hmm.
everything from writing, painting, swordsman, this, that, architecture. You have to be well read in it. So you have certain stature artists in this thing. That's why uh, uh, there were things that were written for. It was earlier obviously only Shakti and Shiva,
Ah.
but when it went into the courts, it was written about the king like this. Tero bala pratap aso jaiso udagana me bhanu hai tu rab saman. He says your aura is like the sun in the sky.
Hmm.
Ali Vali Mahabali Prakata Prabala. You're like God Himself. You're like the incarnation in Himself. Vayu Jal Akash Parvat Agni Bhumi Sab mein teri dhoom Sapta Deep Navakhand mein tero bakhan. So Vayu Jala Akash Parvat Agni Bhumi, everywhere people are talking you. The the 9 continents, the 7 oceans, everybody, huh? Sabdeep Sabbhoop Sakalasus Jana Jananu Patere hi Sharanagata. I mean, everything that is there around you is under your protection. Kara pranam tajaguman. Everybody is saluting to your greatness, to your benevolence. Yeah, and then in the last line it says, Tansen Sut Ajan Tu hai ati meherban. So Tansen Sut means son. Is Ajan means he is not very knowledgeable,
Okay.
and you are very forgiving.
I see.
Jalathala mein nishan. Right from the heavens to the what you say, Patal Lok, everybody knows. Guni Jana Karata Gan, everybody's talking your praise, because Bilas Khan, the son of Tansen, has said something to Akbar,
I see.
and he had angered him. So to make him happy, Tansen had composed his composition asking the forgiveness of his son. So this kind of dialogue used to be there between the person who was protecting that art, any art
Right.
for that matter,
Right.
painter. So that is because of that all these things survived, and they encouraged poetry, new things, because they knew that when you stay in one geographical factor, though those things that are surviving there as a social culture are very important part of the day-to-day living of the people, and that's how you sustain your kingdom.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why there were a lot of things were say. People wrote about Sufis, Payo hai Pira Purana Brahma. So it's like that. Mixing both Radha and mixing Nizamuddin Aulia, and so this culture, which is called the Ganga Jamani Tehzeeb, was there in up to Maharashtra. It was quite prevalent. I mean, in certain portion, even I think up to Tanjore, or probably it was there. Then we started doing this, tried to giving it a very spiritual angle, I think, and then we forgot all the other rasas, because if you see there were in the olden times there were nayaks. Nayaks were above the gayaks, above the ustads, above the pandits, who had studied the scriptures, who had command over the language, who had command over the music, and who had produced very deserving students, very well singing students, and they had the authority to compose new compositions. So there was one Nayak Bakshu who always wrote about Shringar Rasa, always. Like one of our ancestors, Swami Haridas Dagor, he wrote about Bhakti Rasa. It was not, and so everybody took one ras and wrote about it. So all the things were there. Someone wrote about Veer Rasa. So Tana Talwar, Tana ki sipar liye guni jana firat jahan tha. So Tana Talwar, so like the sargam is like a sword, and that the sword is kept inside a scabbard. And with the scabbard and the sword, the musician is moving everywhere. So he's comparing the war-like situation to this thing. you know.
Hmm.
Or they wrote about this thing, rat ki garad dhool aasaman chayo hai, dod dekh n ko yadu na to ayo. So the rath is the chariot is coming, and from that the cloud of dust is spreading everywhere, and the people from Dwaraka are running to see the cloud of dust because Krishna is arriving. So such descriptions have also been written.
I am wondering if the spirituality that surrounds Drupad might have probably been attached to it after royal patronage ended. Because when royal patronage ended, I mean, they had to find some way to be relevant, or for the general population to find it relevant, perhaps.
See, yeah, there are two things happened in my opinion. I'm being very frank about it. People might not like it. The spirituality as a thing came then, I feel. And second thing, they replaced the patrons with the people from companies and all this sponsors kind of a thing. So make them feel like the king. So your music goes through, so that the music survives in some manner.
Right.
And then obviously make the people feel, but still making it feel spiritual, you're trying to making it elitist. And there is a big fear in being elitist, because I come from a tradition. We keep on क्या बोलते छन्नी में से उसको, we keep on draining it through a
Olander.
all the time, to see the most refined things.
Right.
But when you start seeing the most refined things, you are othering the other stuff. When you do that, there is a big risk that you will become fixed and you will die. So this spirituality thing has not, it's not really working in that manner, I feel. And I feel that music is basically meant for a certain class of people.
Okay.
And by that, I don't mean educated people or people who understand music, but only those people who open their hearts. They can come from any strata. In fact, most of my concerts, which I have played in villages, in municipal schools for Speak Mackay, right inside Marathwada, I have seen the best audiences. The people who don't understand anything, they are the ones who are open to what I would say. And you can see real appreciation in their eyes for the music.
Listening without preconceived notions, without expectations.
Exactly. We have tried to make it a very upper class kind of a thing. So we are losing out, because even if you go and through Speak Mackay, I've gone through various schools and all that.
Right.
Municipal schools, tribal schools, Bodo schools, and the children over there, the way they look at your music and the way they reciprocate and the kind of questions they ask you, you cannot imagine. There is nothing to explain to them about Drupad or anything in music. They know it all, you feel like that. Music has come from nature, and nature is everywhere. You have to understand it. It will be best understood in nature, where people are open, where people want to know. You try to put it in some very refined school where the students don't want to see it. What is the point of doing it?
Right. True enough.
Or play it at a sabha where people are only going to see your silk kurta and silk dhoti and say that. Yeah, what is the point?
Now, in fact, Drupad's evolution itself, because there is this feeling Drupad being very traditional, or so it is portrayed, that Drupad is a very traditional old art form, so to speak. But the fact that it has evolved is very clear in just what you said. The fact that the compositions, the lyrics of the compositions have evolved over time based on who it is being patronized by, who it is performed to. So that very fact itself to me shows that Drupad is an evolving art form. Because initially it was
even the alap has evolved every time. My father is to sing something for me, say that his father would sing it like that, he said, I will sing it like that. And then when my uncle would sing, it would be something else, slightly different.
I see.
Not only in the composition, even in the alap and everything.
Right.
That constant change is most welcome in any art form, and it should be there in any art form.
Yeah, otherwise
I
it
mean, it
will
is
cease to be fresh.
ideology is traditional. We are all traditional people in India. We
Right.
will still with the kurta, pajama, we'll still with the sari, we'll greet namaste. We are traditional, nothing wrong in being tradition, but doesn't mean that we will not change that. Instead of a bamboo pen, we are not going to use a ball pen or what. So that is okay, no?
Good example. Good example.
Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit about the Sadharani Geet that you were talking about?
Yeah, the Sadharani Giti is basically is the mixture of all the other four Gitis. The Shuddha Giti is straight notes. Bhinna Giti has more of a ghamak kind of thing.
Okay.
Shuddha Bhinna. Govar Hari has small means here and there. It's like little movements over there.
Okay.
Like small krintans and all those kind of more are there in that. The Vegaswara is the South Indian Giti, which is notes in fast succession.
Okay.
So what Sadharani has done is taken things from this thing and created a different character.
I
So
see.
somewhere we have in quite in moderation, because Shuddha will have majorities straight notes.
Plain
It
notes,
will
right?
not. It's not majority. It's not that it will not have the other things. It will have
Okay.
everything else, but
I see.
majority it will have.
I
Yeah.
see. I see. I see.
So what we have done is we have used everything in moderation and put it together.
I see.
Sadharani Giti, yeah.
Okay.
It
Okay.
came to be known as the Dagur Vani because it was practiced by a group of Dagori Brahmins outside the village in Delhi in the 13th century. Because the voice of the Dagori Brahmins is called Dagur Vani, but actually it is Sadharani Giti.
Oh, okay. I see.
No, and the voice of the Dagorvani can be any student who's following that thing. It doesn't have to be a family member. We know that scholarship is the scholar, but tradition is not the musician. It is the lineage of thought,
Okay. Okay.
and anybody who abides by the lineage of the thought belongs to that tradition. This is very important to know because people think ye hamara gharana hai, we are doing it. No, you are not doing. You are following a lineage of thought.
Right.
It doesn't belong to you, but you are practicing it.
This concept of gharana in Hindustani music, there have been many families where the gharana there is a different treatment of people within the family versus people outside the family who have learned from the same guru. They might have said, in fact, I've even heard that there are teachers who will teach certain aspects only to family members and not teach it to non-family members. These are things I've heard. So
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Well,
why did that
those
come about, and how far is it applicable in the Dagar Bani? Because the Dagar Bani has a
it
lot
is
of people in it outside the Dagar family also.
no. See, if you the whole thing is if you don't teach what you know, in some time you're going to forget it.
Right, absolutely.
So there is if you want to save what your tradition is, if you want to save the entire repertoire, you need to teach it to more people because you don't know who is going to take what. No, so
Yeah.
and people who have not done somehow their lineage has finished or it will finish in time. You
Right,
cannot
right.
do that.
That requires being completely ego free, and insecurity free. Like if I give this information,
but
will it come back?
But if you want a gharana to survive, this is the only manner in which it's going to survive. I
Right.
don't see. I mean,
Right.
because even recordings can't do anything.
Mm.
It has to be passed from one person to another person.
So does Drupad have any rules in terms of only certain rags can be played?
No, there are no rules. In fact,
Oh.
every rag we want to. I don't remember, but my uncle, one of my other father's cousins, Fahimuddin Dagar, knew a composition in rag Kanakangi.
Oh,
It was composed in Drupad.
I see.
So then there was another uncle of mine in Pune, Saiduddin Dagar, who knew compositions in rag Vardhani.
I see.
We are seeing, because the way the rags are written, they were not written from different genres, or they were not written for different gharanas. They were just written like these are the rags, these are the raginis, these are the ragputras, these are the vaduputra, varputra, and this is the family, and this is how it goes. And you can adapt them to anything. Also, we don't believe in the concept of a small rag and a big rag.
I see.
Every rag has to be look like the Malashri rag. Sa, ga, pa, sa. It's only 3 notes.
Oh,
But I heard a 1 hour elaboration from my uncle in Malashri,
I
in
see.
Saga Pa, Sa, without a repetition.
I
And
see.
I was stunned. I was really stunned. So,
I see.
our ustad is to always say, like in the south, many people say we don't like Amrita Varshani.
Huh.
It's like a little bit low rag.
Mm.
But I remember that my uncle sang Amrita Varshani once.
I see.
And I think it was Balkrishna Iyengar probably who said that I have never heard such an Amrita Varshani to be performed in such a manner.
Right.
I think it is just how you are looking at it and how you want to approach it. If you're already going to approach it in the way that's already there, that is one way. But if you want to see what else can be done to it, maybe there is another way to go
Start
about
from
it.
a clean slate, so to speak, and think of
Yeah,
it as something with a
exactly.
lot of potential
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of. So, what do you think about this whole this Drupad Sansthan, that whole Me Too scandal? You were the first responder for that.
I was not the first responder. My wife was the first responder.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. It's great loss. I mean, it's very sad what happened to the students, but it's very sad to what happened to both the brothers, because what they built as an empire, they totally destroyed. And yeah, I mean, they are at loss. It's unfortunate for them also. I mean, both ways. And in one light, I think Drupad has taken a beating, because that popularity which they had given to Drupad, they were quite popular,
Yeah.
that went down. In the other way, it was very traumatic for the students who wanted to give their lives for the cause of Drupad, were unable to do so because of such circumstances.
Right.
And I think it becomes about a power trip. The guru definition of a guru is a margdarshak. He can't be anything more than that. Someone who will show you the way.
Right.
It's I mean, it is quite destructive actually. It is quite saddening in a way, because such a big thing has come up, and it's saddening also because there were students of my father and my uncle,
Right.
and they have not really grasped what the Guru Shishya Parampara should be.
Right.
We
right.
are all the time debating what it should be. Even now we have some students and we talk about the Guru Shishya Parampara and what it is and what it should not be and what it is actually. What it is mostly about the practice of the art.
Right.
It is not about trying to get control over people's lives or something. I mean, it is one of the best systems to learn music, I think, Guru Shishya
Absolutely.
Parampara. But if you don't understand how it is done, then it can destroy everything.
Do you think it's the popularity aspect that is doing this?
Yeah,
Because the
definitely.
desire for
Obviously.
public performance, it's
Obviously,
uh,
it is the popularity aspect only. It has nothing to do with the quality of work. It is
That's-
always the popularity. Yeah.
how much time do you have to practice a particular rag? Because you have to showcase so many different rags in quick succession. The 7 years for 3 rags that you did, for example, would you be able to spend another 7 years learning a 3 more rag?
I would do that.
Mm.
I would personally spend, like now I'm looking at 2 rags, and next few years I'm going to look at them definitely.
Okay.
And I will not play those rags until those rags. If they are never ready, I'll never play them.
Ah.
And I'm not worried about a repertoire at all.
Okay.
Because if you have understood the genre, then you are capable of making new compositions yourself. That is
Okay.
the first thing.
Okay.
Second thing, if you're singing the same composition again, there can be 1,000 different ways in which you can say the same composition.
Okay.
With slight, and you can, like, for example, there is a student of my father. There was, I don't know if he's still alive, Lee Scanlon in New York. And every time my father played, because my father mostly played Yaman, every time my father played Yaman, he took a recording of that.
I see.
And my father said, what do you do with all these Yamans? He says, Ustad, let me show you. So he put 6 record players together. And he started all the Yaman at the same time. He said, see, from here you went over there, from here you went. In every recording you're making a different thing. That thing is repeated. That's what I'm seeing in your Yaman. Every time the Yaman is new.
I see.
So this is what I am looking for in life. I am not worried about if I play the Yaman again or no. I might play it next 10 times, but I want to play it as different as possible. Uh, it is not a matter of showcasing for me. It is a matter of rediscovery of what is already there.
Of actually assimilating what is there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I would like people to go on that journey with me. See what else is, or maybe today's Yaman was not good. Forget it. It was
Yeah.
as bad as it should be.
Right.
That is also okay. And tomorrow again, okay, today it seems better. Today you did a vistara of this thing and this happened and this happened. Last time it didn't happen. Yeah, it didn't happen. I know that a whole lot of Karnataka musicians learn like 8,000, 10,000 compositions and all that, and it's mind-boggling. I mean, I think it's sheer genius to do that, but I would like to go into depth and detail of every composition and see what else you can do about it.
In fact, I have heard stories of, really well-known masters who knew a whole lot more compositions than they ever portrayed on stage. They only felt some were deserving of being portrayed on stage. Only the ones they had actually digested completely would they portray on stage.
Yeah, like rags like Darbari, Jaijavanti, Charukesi. I mean, whole lot of 30, 40 rags which my father never played outside.
I
mean,
see.
never heard him, but he knew about them. And once you would show them like that, and you say, oh, he knows this rag. I mean, there was nothing that he didn't know. But I said, why didn't you play it outside? He said, nee, it's okay, it doesn't matter. I'll play the Yaman outside. I like the Yaman.
There was a very high level of introspection that he wanted to do before he was willing to share it in public.
No, I mean, he had done that, but some rags he never played. And sometimes he gave me a reason like, no, he said, but certain person is doing it well, no? Let him sing that rag. Even in the Gharana system, I remember if you ask for those rare rags which were there, so they would say, go and listen to the Jaipur Gharana. They sing them very well, like rag Daguri or rag Ahirnat and all those kind of things. So Yaman, acha, go and listen to this family. They would not sing it. It was the people had created boundaries. He let them sing that.
I see.
It's not that.
I see.
So I think my father and we all just keep to certain things. Okay, now I am playing much more different ragas than he played and all that. But fine. I mean, it was just a different time then.
Right.
And still, I don't feel the urge to know the entire repertoire or more. Need to know more. I think whatever I know now is good enough for me at this point of time. If it grows, it grows. If it doesn't grow, that's bad. That's how bad I am or good I am. Doesn't matter.
So do you get your students to learn vocal and veena? Are vocal students supposed to learn veena and vice versa?
No,
even
now because in the beginning nothing like that now. So they're all mostly beginners. Maybe
so you do get beginner students who start from Sarigama.
I'm telling you, the students I have got now, they don't know anything about music. Sa, they don't know the difference between sa and ra. If you play a note on the this thing, they will not tell you which note it is. They don't know.
I see.
They are feeling frustrated, but I'm telling, let's make a journey together. You will get something. Don't worry. Some of them understand, so with them I go ahead. You see, he's playing everything. I said, don't compare yourself with him. It's just you be with me. I'm being with you. No, you be with me. So I think you never know, because some students have learned for 6 years. First 2 years you're totally out of the tune. If you say sa, this is sa, re, re, ga, ga. And after 2 years, suddenly they are in tune.
Yeah.
Once they are able to hear, they are in tune, but they have to try to do that, no?
I understand.
So I'm just letting them try and letting them be. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
You have performed with your wife a few times. Did you have to do any pitch adjustment, and how was that?
No, she sings in G sharp. The veena is in G sharp.
Oh, the veena is always in G sharp. You always have your veena in G sharp.
Yeah, our veena is in G sharp.
I see.
My father changed the tuning from E, it went down into G sharp. My uncle used to sing in G sharp.
I see.
And his voice would go all the 3 octaves, from the lower sa to the middle sa and to the upper. All the 3 octaves his voice would go. So when I played with my uncle, he would be singing in G sharp. He was not singing in D, which was his natural pitch. Yeah, and he would cover everything.
How How
I know
was he
his-
able to do that? G sharp is a very unusual pitch for a male, right?
Yeah, it is. But his voice training was such. He did his morning Kharaj sadhana every day, and his voice was such that he would totally go up to the upper sa very easily. Sometimes even from my Kharaj, he would go low down 5 notes below
I see.
to the
I
lower
see.
pa.
I
So I
see.
was like, yeah. I mean, he just developed his voice. He said, I don't believe in this pitch and everything.
I
Put
see.
me anywhere. I'm going to sing.
What were the range of pitches that he could sing at? His natural thing was
Well,
D sharp?
D. His natural
D.
was D.
Okay.
Safed do, yeah. I mean,
I see. I
and
see.
then he sang with my father G sharp. So just two pitches he normally just kept like that.
I see.
But nothing, but never falsetto. There is a recording of his. There's a duet of my father and my uncle. You'll see on YouTube. They're singing, I think, Jog. They are singing. University of Washington recording, 1986.
So this courage training that you mentioned earlier. So how many hours would your uncle would do that every single day?
My uncle would be getting up at 2:30 in the morning. He hardly
I
slept
see.
for 3-4 hours.
I see.
He was of the opinion that you don't break stones. No, you should not sleep for more than 4 hours.
Okay.
2 o'clock in the morning, he would get up, and 2:30 all the students would get up for Kharaj. So from 2:30 or 2:45 to until the first rays of sun, you do that.
I see.
Then you take half an hour break, and then so 2 to 3 hours they would do. So what that does is it gets your voice lower down. Also, it increasing your lung capacity and your power of your voice. If you ever have an ice cream or anything, or you will never catch a cough, never catch a cold, and you won't have a problem with your voice.
I
You
see.
don't have to do anything to be careful about your voice.
I see. So they were not very restrictive on their diet or anything like that.
No, my ustad I've seen him have ice creams and ice creams up before a concert.
Okay. I see.
Anything.
What do you feel about this? The time, the specific times that are given for certain ragas. Do you abide by
I
them
think
or?
Yeah, I abide by them because
Okay.
in my opinion, personally, I mean, not from any reading or something, the time theory has come because of Tanpura.
I see.
When you tune a Tanpura in the morning at sunrise, you tune the Joda, the middle two, and the Pancham and the Kharaj. Just before sunrise, when the sun rises, the Pancham and the Kharaj differ.
Oh,
You will see. That means the Sa goes higher and those two become lower.
I
So
see.
then, see now, if you see the Bhairav Sa in the morning is on the dot, but after that, the next Todi Sa is slightly higher.
Okay.
Then if you go into the afternoon, again the Sa reduces, goes lower.
I see.
Then in the afternoon, it again increases. The evening, it becomes okay. Then in the night, it goes much lower.
Right.
So this, because of this, I think they have put this time theory ki Multani in this time, Yaman at this time, Bhoop at this time, Malkos at this time, Darbari at this time. Like Darbari Rag, if you don't sing it rightly, if you don't apply the notes rightly, the Gandhar and the Dhaivat, it starts sounding somewhere like a morning raga,
I see.
where it is a very late night rag.
Hmm.
So I think the time theory has come from there. And also I seen that in various seasons, certain rags prompt themselves to you.
I see.
Like during Basant, the Basant rag will come out. Also
Right.
Hindol will come.
Right.
Then Purvi will come. So those kind of rags will come. Then when the climate changes, I think something changes with that. And there is a calling for newer set of rags.
Can you demonstrate a little bit, actually, by singing, showing me some of those practice, the courage, the murchana, and the taha, what you do?
So the Mursan is Kharaj is just a simple thing. You take a deep breath and so if you can go to the lower pa, then you apply the lower pa for a few days and it will go down. So, but you try to increase the breath for 1 minute. Just like that, you just keep on going on and increase that duration of, so your lung capacity becomes more. Then the murchana is in the morning. For the vocalist, we give a small palta like ma pa da ni sa re ni da pa ga ma pa ma ga re sa ni, not to go above the pa until 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So it's like ma pa da ni sa re sa ni da ga ma pa ga ma pa ga ma pa ma ga re sa ni, with a little bit of gamak in that.
I
Then
see.
after that murjana sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, higher.
Huh.
Sa ni da pa ma ga re sa ni sa re ga, up to how low you can go, and up to the upper ga.
Right.
Then sing a composition with the tali in the hand, not with the percussion. You have to get the tali first,
Okay.
the composition with your tali and
Okay.
khali in your hand, and then you sit with the
I see.
pakhavaji after that.
I see. I
So
see.
that, yeah. And then
So,
2 lines of alap, just
huh.
do again and again and again, just to get an idea of what is the swarup of the rag.
Those 2 lines would be given to you and you just repeat it without alteration
Yeah,
at that point.
without alteration for 1.5 hours, 2 hours, and do that for a couple of months.
I
And
see.
then we teach them how to improvise with the words, where to go from where, and then give them a few examples,
Huh.
and then let them do it on their own.
And
And
how
then
do
keep
you
on
do this
listening.
on the Rudraveena to a starting student? How do you start on the
Rudra
Veena?
Veena, we start with the Murchana straight away.
Okay.
Murchana, and one pulling is pa da ni ni da pa da ra da ni sa sa. So this kind of pa da ni da pa da ni sa. So you build your fingers, strength of your fingers for pulling, and
Okay.
also you understand the pulling of the notes of the 3 notes pa da ni da pa, that,
Okay.
and then we straight away take them into the sthai of the alap.
Oh, okay.
So da chikari da chik da ra chik. So like, according to the student, we slightly vary the sthai every time. We do
Right.
not give everybody the same sthai.
Okay.
So because then something, when you give the sthai, they give you an indication of how they want to go. So you slightly alter it according to them.
Okay.
It becomes a part of them nature, which matches with them. So they don't struggle too much to get it done.
Yeah, so I guess it's a very fine line for a teacher to find, I mean, to challenge the student, but not demotivate them at the same time.
Exactly. He should not feel that I am taking too much effort in the beginning. Otherwise, he will not do.
Right.
So what
right.
is his nature? We set it according to that and let him be in that for some time.
Yeah.
And then if he wants to come back to the original, he will ask for it and he'll come back to it. Don't force it down his throat that
So
this is the only way, because there is no the only way in life.
So from what you said, the fact that your father did not actually push you into music, I mean, he was surrounded, but he never pushed you, he didn't force you to practice. That seems to have had a lot of effect in actually pushing you towards music. The fact that he didn't push you.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
I think we can call it reverse psychology. Because he says, if I don't tell this guy, don't, because I remember at times he used to just tell my mother, don't allow this guy to touch my veena, he spoils it. And he would go to the market. And my mother would say yes. And immediately I would go and play the veena. I think he knew I was going to do that. So I think he used a lot of reverse psychology on me.
Right.
And many
right.
times, even while teaching, if he had to tell me something, he would not tell me. He would tell the person sitting next to me, this is like this is like that. And for that person, it was, that why is he telling him? It's totally irrelevant for this fellow. He's a fool. Why isn't he telling me? But he's telling you. This is how he used to teach everybody all the time.
Right.
And,
right.
Yeah, I have another boy with me over here who's come from a different Gurukul. He's a sculptor. He's not learning music. He makes veenas. So he was talking of the same thing about his guru doing the same thing, telling some third randomly the most important information.
Right.
And this guy is wondering, why is he and that guy has nothing to do with it.
When you are playing the veena, are you trying to the different vocalizations that people give, the tara, nana, nom, all those sounds, are you trying to bring those vocal nuances also in your playing?
Yes, all the time. In the beginning, I didn't, it was not possible to do that because I was just trying to grasp how to improvise a rag and all that.
Right.
But around 10-15 years ago, I started again from scratch. I left everything and I started from scratch, and I started to incorporate these words "a-ra-ra-na, re-ra-ra-na, te-ta-ra-na" in my playing.
I see.
Because I knew if the word structure is right, then the phrase gets cut at the right place, and that if that is right, automatically the rag swarup remains right.
Okay. Okay.
So I had to rethink everything I was doing, play everything all over again, and restructure my entire way of playing. And it does not look very changed from the outside, but I put a lot of, now I think about it from the words only.
So so you can actually vocalize exactly what you're playing. Like if you were asked to
Yes,
repeat it.
exactly. Yeah. Very. It's just that now. Yeah, at least 95% I would say, definitely. Maybe 5% I still might go off, but that is a tradition. So I want to do that. So
Because that was another
it's my
thing that was
intention.
very striking for me in that Drupad video, where your father is explaining how he's developing one swar, two swars, and three swars. There's a
Yeah,
section,
exactly.
and he is singing and he is playing. And to me, as a lay person, I mean, not an expert in Drupad, the syllable, I almost know that that has to be the syllable for what he's playing.
Exactly.
Because I don't use those syllables. As a Carnatic musician, those are not the syllables I would use. I mean, I would vocalize it differently, but I know that is what he's playing. It is so perfect, the translation between vocal and instrument in what your father has played. So it was
So
very,
that
very.
is where we all want to go.
What do you think is wrong with Drupad right now, generally as an art form, and how do you think we should get out of it, and how do you see Drupad and Tamar, evolving in India and beyond?
See, the thing with wrong, you already answered it. People go to it because it has become popular now. Mostly, that doesn't mean that we're going to maintain the quality. I sometimes feel that some of the audiences are not investing real time in understanding what Drupad is. So they have some version or some idea of Drupad which they want to promote, and they think that is the only right way. As the markets have opened of concerts, people even in Drupad genre are mixing what is the Dagarwani style, the Khandara, the Darbhanga style, the Vishnupur style, to find a mean position which will be like a selling point. I have the sweetness of a chocolate, and I have the sourness of a lemon, and then I have the consistency of a bread. So and I mean, and not only in Drupad, I see even in Khyal, I see people in the lower octave they want to be like Amir Khan Saab. In the middle octave they want to be like Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Saab. Higher octave they want to be like Abdul Karim Khan Saab, and then sing a bhajan either like Kumar Gandharva or Pandit Bhamsi Joshi. This becomes like a format for them to get the concerts. So if this goes on with Drupad, then actually we'll have no lineage of thought left. We won't have this refinement of something which is so precious and which is so indigenous or to that particular ideology will not be present, and everything will become a mix of this, that, and that. And eventually, if you ask, if this happens, and then 50 years down you ask somebody what are the roots of this, then we'll have lost the roots of that.
Do you take influence from other styles of Drupad other than Dagarwani, or
See, influence, no, but if I listen to something very nice from somebody, you cannot deny it, I mean, because like not only Drupad, like recently I listened to Ashwini Bidiji, and she sang a very beautiful Jai Jayavanti composition quite some time ago, and I found it very close to the composition we have, and I could say, wow, kya baat hai, it's such a beautiful. It was composed by her guru, Baba Alauddin Khan Sahab, I think, or Alladia Khan Sahab's composition probably, and it was so beautifully composed. I mean, you cannot deny that to something that is so beautiful. There are so many compositions like that from so many musicians. Even I mean, I'm also one person who listens to a lot of Carnatic music. I've been great fan. I've listened to my friend's house right across Maharajapuram, Santanam. I've been a great fan of Dorai Swamiji. Uh, uh, all these names, and I do attend Karnataka concerts also, and where I listen, there are some good musicians. I go and listen and see what they're trying to do, what are they trying to say, what are they doing with their work. Uh, I listen to even youngsters, younger musicians, because they're fresh in ideas. What are they trying to do? What are they saying? How are they looking at things? How do they want to project this? So I will take anything from anywhere and then change the model, and if it fits in my work, I will, and doesn't destroy my work, I will do that. But if it doesn't fit, doesn't matter, I still like it.
Yeah.
So I'm very open to that. And I think this openness is very necessary for the survival of the genre of Drupad.
Right. Right.
But yeah, but also I don't like when people mix too many things also. I mean, because I don't get a sense of where it is coming and where it is going to. So that I get, personally I get confused. People might like it, but I begin to wonder where this is, because what happens in music when you follow a path, it is like a mathematical, in a way it is like a mathematical problem being solved. This step, then why you came to the ga, why you went to the ma, why you went back over here. So everything is like in a manner. It is in a sense it is not composed, but it is built in a certain framework, and it gives ideas to things to move around in a certain manner. There is a random motion, you can say, but that random is connected in certain way. So I know where it is coming from, why it is going, and why. So I like to see that process.
Right.
Sometimes when the process sometimes there feels like a disconnect, because two different processes have been put together. Then it becomes very strange for me.
Generally, I don't find too many women in Drupad. Your wife is an exception, but there aren't too many women in Drupad. Is there a reason for that?
No, I mean, in India, Indian mentality is such, by the time they're 21, you want to get them married. So, what to do? I mean, this is the things that the men should look into now.
Right.
Because life is changing, and I mean, now there are a lot more girls who want to learn and all that, and become Drupad musicians. It's difficult, because still we are in this, I don't know, 16th century mentality sometimes, that woman should cook, she should be in the house, she should do this, she should not go out, you'll not allow her to go out after 10 o'clock. So I think it's a bit sad, I think, because there can be, I mean, also there is this very preconceived notion about it's a very male gaiki, which it is not.
That is why I'm asking, is there anything physiologically that prevents women from being good Drupad singers?
Why? I mean, it will be something else. Why bind it down to something like that?
Right.
I mean, I read somewhere कि ध्रुपद गाने के लिए 2 भैंस का ताकत लगता है.
What does that mean?
The power of to sing Drupad, you require the power of 2 buffaloes.
2 buffaloes. Yes, that's exactly. Those are the kind of things I'm asking. Like.
Yeah, but this is nonsense. Whoever said that you have to become a buffalo to become a Drupad singer? I mean, no. I mean, everything has pros and cons. I mean, if there is a woman's voice, the subtlety and the suppleness is something else. I mean, Goddess Saraswati is a woman. Why should Drupad be only male?
So, who do you think are the current, good torch bearers of the Dagar Bani, whether it is vocal or instrumental?
So, I think now there is Pushparaj Koshti ji, who is a Surbhar player.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is Nirmala Day, who is quite a spark. And there are others, but I don't know. Nothing really hard-hitting for me. And Pushparaj ji is quite hard. I mean, because that I know that he's into the core of it, and if you have a discussion with him about work and the Ragdari aspects, and he is very clear on his ideas and how things have to be dealt with if there are 3 rags standing, and how you make a way throughout it. Obviously, he doesn't get many concerts, but that's okay. I mean, it doesn't make him a lesser musician. And there is Nirmalya Day, who has studied only with my uncle, Ustad Zia Fariduddin Dagar, and he's quite, I mean, for him, my uncle has been everything somehow. And you can see that in his work. Somewhere you can see it. He is a little bit. I wish he could portray himself more strongly. He, because he's, yeah, I think he has much more potential than he knows that he has, and he should do that. Then there are other students who are like, they're fine, they're all doing well, but I don't know. I mean, they're very popular, but that's how it is.
There is also this other very mistaken impression that Drupad is a kind of, a very whispery, croony sort of thing, whereas that is not what it is when you listen to the old masters. There's a whole range of sound that they can produce without a microphone.
Yeah, generally the thing was, if you don't have a good voice in Khyal, you should go and learn Drupad.
Okay, I thought Drupad was far more demanding actually.
No, they said in the 70s it was like that. If you don't have a good voice in Khyal, you should go and learn Drupad.
I see.
So it is not like that. It is the other way around, but still, I mean.
You had mentioned earlier that the one of the things that you can't, there were two things on the Veena that you cannot do, that you can do in vocal. Can you just explain that?
So Hudak is, so that kind of thing you can't do on the Drupad.
Okay.
Gamaka. So this kind of deep gamak you can't do. No?